Hey, happy 2022 to our church. Happy 22 to our online audience. And we're going to get started with a good message today and lots to pass on. So first of all, I'm hearing some music in the background. Hopefully that's not me. Okay, now I can hear myself a little better. Just wanted to say it's been a crazy last 2 years. I know we're all concerned about what 2022 will bring because we don't know about the future, but we do know who holds our future and who we pray to and has control over it. So because of that, we're going to start forward with some church housekeeping matters. We have some guest speakers coming our way shortly. We are blessed to have Pastor Brandon Holthouse with us. He's going to be here this coming Sunday in just a few days. I've been to his church. He's been here before. He's very excelled in political science. He talks about current events. You'll enjoy him. He packs a good house. He has a great message coming for us. After him, we have Ken Markell of Jan Markell's ministry. He will be here with us, it looks like just a day before Valentine's Day. He has a special message prepared for us. He's been here before at our church. And I think the reason I kind of have a keen fondness for him is because he's a retired police officer who teaches Bible prophecy. See a connection here? I appreciate people that spend their time doing that. So we have him to look forward to in February. Also, we have Pastor Tom Hughes coming to us on March 27th. Pastor Tom Hughes, been to his church. He's been here a few times. These are the pastors, folks, that I listen to every week to get updates. When you listen to several pastors, you get the whole picture. They're all gifted and they're specialized in their fields. As a group, they're just wonderful to listen to and feed the soul throughout the week. Now, we do have an online membership course that happens consistently over here. Just spoke with Pastor Bobby, and we are having one that's beginning this coming Sunday. So if you want to be an online member, or all you have to do is email the address that's on the bottom, or if you're here in your local, check with Pastor Bobby, he'll get you in. It's for, I believe, either 4 weeks or 40 weeks, one of those two. I believe it's 4 weeks. But he'll get you tuned in and plugged in so you know who we are. We want to get to know you. We want to be plugged in. Also, beginning of the year, I want to start out with a few slides that kind of talk about our world, kind of start things on a light sense of humor. And I saw this picture and I thought, the world is like Pharaoh. He fears the plagues, but not God. So what do we see going on today in our world, folks? The world is fearing something, are they not? Something medical, perhaps, that's being injected. But the world fears the plagues, but not God. Who should we fear? God, who has control over the body and the soul, right? Thought that was interesting. Moving along, here's a kind-hearted one. Excuse me, are you going to be filling the bird feeder soon? They wanted me to ask. No self-serving interest here. He's obviously looking out for his neighbors, for everybody else. I thought that was kind of cute. Got a few more slides here to get started here. This is actually, it's possible that it's at Pastor Billy's house with his wiener dogs. And I don't know if this attempt was successful or a failure, but he was trying to avoid and escape the bath torture. So I don't know if it worked out or not, but this could very well be a real living situation. All right. Here's a sign you see at a church talking about our world today. We have all kinds of confusion. We have moral confusion. We have sexual confusion. And we have gender confusion. But who is the author of all kinds of confusion in our world? It's Satan. And speaking on the topic of confusion, this will present the next slide. There you go. It's good to have a watch to kind of tell you what's going on, like who your name is. Now, you think I'm joking. You think it's being maybe making a little ridicule here by the year 2021. He just actually said in the last 24 hours to a live press audience that we have good things to look forward to this year in 2020. So the other people had heard that same video. I see people nodding heads. So he's only off by a couple of years. He tells him who his vice president's name is, his wife's name. It's important to know these things. And also don't take malarkey or criticism from certain Fox reporters, right? And always remember, when you follow the masses, be careful. Sometimes the M is silent. So there you go, folks. We have the sheep, we have the goats. Which group do you want to be with? And then lastly, There are gentlemen in this world that will actually open doors for women and walk them to places. That still happens. I've done this many a times, and I still open a door for my wife. And lastly, this could be in front of my house. Before you break into my house, stand outside and get right with Jesus. Tell them you're on your way soon, really soon. I'm going to arrange for that to happen. So anyway, other church matters. We do have different ways to reach out to the online audience. We have 3 different channels on YouTube. We have Billy Crone Live, and Billy Crone Live Broadcast. He's also on Facebook, Twitter, Roku, Telegram. You can download the Billy Crone app on your Android or iPhone devices. Also, we will be taking an offering at the back of the church in the black boxes. We have Connect cards in between where you're sitting. We want to connect with you. We want to know a little bit about you. We want you to get to know us. So put that in the black box along with any type of cash or check offering. We appreciate that. And I think if you're watching online, the online audience should be seeing a number at the bottom of the screen that allows them to text forward any donations for our ministry. And we really do appreciate that, folks. Thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and open in prayer, and then I'm going to start today's topic, because I'm sure some of you are curious, where are we going with this? This is going to be a multi-part topic, and we'll get as far as we can today before we pick up next time. So let's go ahead and open in prayer. Father God, I'm so grateful and blessed that Pastor Billy Crone gives me a platform to reach others, to touch hearts, to enlighten people with current events, where we are in the Bible, what the future holds, who holds the future. We have a lot of distractions pulling us away, and Father, they are satanic. And I could easily have titled today's message, Digital Distractions, because so many things take our time away from your word, take our time away from fellowship with you, take our time away from reading the Bible. And these are things that we need to evaluate, and we need to cleanse ourselves, we need to evaluate ourselves, and we need to examine where our hearts truly are. So we ask for all this and a blessing through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who resurrected and saved us with his shed blood. And all the people in church said, Amen. Okay, you're going to find this probably to be an interesting topic. Hopefully I don't put anybody to sleep here. But it's a multi-part message, and this is what we're going to be going into. And you don't see a lot of churches necessarily talk about these things, but it affects Christians, so I think it's important we cover it. So we're going to go into transhumanism. Maybe it's something you're familiar with. Maybe you don't know anything about it at all. Maybe it's something that you don't think should be brought up in a church environment, but it's going to be pulling in a lot of Christians into it. So we have to decide, where are you on this issue? And I also put the title above transhumanism, Demonic Deception. So this is going to be part 1. We're going to talk about digital media. We're going to talk about Facebook. We're going to talk about metaverse. And we're going to start talking about the integration with man, with machine. And we'll be continuing this series. So let's move forward on this. First of all, I don't know about you folks, but when I wake up in the morning, this is the ship that I'm on. I call it the USS Armor of God. It's a spiritual battle that's going on in front of us. And a lot of people, and unfortunately, Christians today do not even recognize or believe that Satan actually exists. 65%. That's right, 65% of Christians do not even believe in a literal demon, devil, Satan. And if you don't believe in one, how can you defeat your enemy when you don't recognize who your enemy is? So you need, as Ephesians 6 tells us, the full armor of God. You need to have that helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit, the belt of truth, and the shoes of peace. And these are things that you need to wear piece by piece. It's a reason why we have them, because there are spiritual forces in the darkness that's full in our world. And if you've seen the way our world has changed in the last 2 years, evil is good, good is evil, everything is upside down. Everybody's confused about the basics, about gender and who they are in Christ. Everybody's confused, and there's confusion, and we know who the author is. So unfortunately, a lot of Christians today, because they don't recognize the enemy, they don't believe in the enemy, they're not prepared for the enemy, where do they find themselves? Well, they're on this ship. They're on the cruise ship. And a lot of Christians find themselves over here on the USS, as I call it, self-discovery. They're there waiting for their ice cream cones. They're waiting for the hot tub to play their games. And they don't believe in the spiritual darkness in the world that envelops them. So they're on their own la-ti-da, me, myself, and I topic. And that needs to change. Now here's symbols that are current in our society that tell us who we are, what we're about. And we all recognize these symbols. What do we do with them? How much time do we spend with them? How much time as a Christian should we give these icons? We all know what they represent, and they are our lives today. It's the world we live in. So here's a picture of the Tower of Babel. We all know that story. That is actually, if you think about it, the first time the term social distancing occurred. Because these were the Babylonian world system tried to exemplify themselves, build a tower to reach up to the gods, to God himself. They wanted to be gods themselves. They wanted a better life for themselves. They had technology. They wanted to replace God. And God said, this is going to come to an end. We're not going to let this continue. And I will strike them down with language that they will not understand each other. Kind of like social distancing. They were there close to one another, but yet they could not understand each other. And I don't even like that term, social distancing. It's kind of like a play of words. It doesn't make sense. Social means to interact. It means to be in close proximity. It means to have fellowship, communication. Distancing is separation. It's distance. It's no interaction. So how do you put social and distancing? Who came up with that? I don't get it. That's like trying to use the term military intelligence. Or as Pastor Billy would use, yummy and chicken, okay? It just doesn't fit in well together. So what we have here is a picture of the Tower of Babel, as I was alluding to. And as you can see, I think we need a bigger sign, a no habla inglés, an indication of they weren't understanding and communicating well with each other. But what do we have here in today's world? We really are not communicating with each other. That's our typical world today. We have our little cubicles. I've had those jobs and I hate it because I like to fellowship. I like to talk, be in proximity, help, converse. And we're all isolated by our machines, by our computers. We're not able to really fellowship, communicate unless you need help or a supervisor is asking you why your production numbers aren't high. So we isolate ourselves. We are socially distanced today. So here we have a symbol that should be familiar, a Trojan horse. We all kind of know the mythology, the Greek story, the island of Troy. They had a gift bestowed upon them where it was a hollowed out gift. They didn't know that at the time, with soldiers inside. And when it came through the city's gates, the high walls, infiltration occurred into that society. And at nighttime when they slept, the soldiers within the horse came out and did their dastardly deed and succeeded in taking over the empire. So we have with us today what I like to call a new Trojan horse. Let me explain a little further on this. Let's add Facebook to that Trojan horse. Now, everybody remembers Facebook, right? I mean, it sounded like a great thing. We got it a few years ago, thanks to Mr. Zuckerberg, and it was free. I mean, how can you not enjoy that? Free, and I get to be in charge of my own social profile. I get to be in charge of my own social media. I can connect with all my friends, with all my family, with all my coworkers, and it will really be an elevation of my three favorite topics, me, myself, and I. It's about self. And you might think I'm harsh saying this, but I think it's totally demonic. And when you first signed up with Facebook, you probably didn't take time to read through all the little legal loopholes and the contents and all the little small letters and paragraphs and phrases, pages and pages you had to scroll through before you finally say accept. When you accepted, because like me, you probably didn't read that stuff, you actually had your own digital ID given to you. And when they gave you a digital ID, that gave them permission that you gave them to then use advertising. They can spy on you, they can track you, they can follow you. They get to basically go wherever you go because you have them on your phone and you have them with you. And you're giving them all of your social media information. Because, we all know people live on Facebook. We see it more with the younger generation. I might age myself here, saying I'm at the end of the baby boomers. but I can put it down quite easily. I can wish somebody a happy birthday, and that's about it for me for Facebook. But a lot of people, it's all about, this is what I did today. This is the movie I'm going to. This is what I had for lunch. See, here's a picture of what I had to eat. Here's my dessert. Here's what I did on the treadmill after I had my big lunch. Here's me on Facebook taking vacations with my kids and all the places we went to and what I'll be doing day by day by day. And it takes them away from God's word, out of fellowship with God, and the emphasis on Facebook is all about the self. And we see that more and more with social media as we move forward. So here's 3 things that you need to have true happiness in life. And this is what we are being told. We're being sold this bill of goods. And you realize I took time to find the right chair because you want one that has a little, holder for your magazines, cup holder, it reclines, head adjust, feet tilt, and a back massager is included. So that's one of the 3 things that you need to find true happiness in society. Now, you may have to write this down. Maybe you can memorize this, but there's 2 more things coming, and this is what the world is pushing on us. So we got our lazy boy chair, right? What's the other thing that we need? The Internet of Things. We need Wi-Fi. We need internet. We need connection. Oh my gosh, have you had it where somebody in your family complains the internet stopped or it stopped working and you're calling your provider? How much longer? How will I survive? What will I do? When's it going to be fixed? And lastly, this is what you need. And this gets us into our next topic. You need gaming devices, visual devices. Welcome to Metaverse. So you have those 3 things. You'll be happy, you'll have true happiness, you'll never actually have to leave your house. So there's a picture of a Pandora's box. And this is what digital media, Facebook, and Metaverse, which we're going to go into shortly. I have a clip here I want you to see. It's going to tell you about how it's taken over our world, how popular it is, where they're going with it in the future, and the amount of money that follows this trail. Let's go ahead and watch this video.
You've probably seen the news. Just a few weeks ago, Facebook announced that they're changing their company name to Meta because they're planning on building something called the Metaverse. I don't think enough people are talking about this. The Metaverse is going to change my life. It's going to change your life. So we need to understand what it is, why people are excited about it, but then also how it has the potential to end society as we know it. The concept of the Metaverse is this. Throughout history, we have constantly been moving towards more and more engaging mediums. We've gone from text to photo to video. We've gone from reading books and papers to now spending most of our spare time watching TikToks on the internet. And the Metaverse is what comes next. An internet that you're not just looking at through a screen, but that you're actually inside of. Take anything you could think of doing right now. Shopping, chatting with friends, meditating to ASMR videos on YouTube. And now imagine that in the time it takes you to just snap your fingers, you could be doing that thing in a way that feels real, with other people who feel present in a setting that's whatever you want it to be. A living, shared, everlasting, virtual universe. That's Meta's vision of the Metaverse, achieved through a combination of augmented reality and virtual reality, which they've said that they will subsidize the cost of in an effort to get as many people on this planet to be a part of the Metaverse. And in case I wasn't clear, this is pretty damn cool, and there are some undeniable positives. Like, just to get the obvious out of the way, the Metaverse will allow you to live out. You've probably seen the news. Just a few weeks ago, Facebook announced that they're changing their company name to Meta because they're planning on building something called the Metaverse.
Sorry about that.
I don't think enough people are talking about this. The Metaverse is going to change my life. It's going to change your life. So we need to understand what it is, why people are excited about it, but then also how it has the potential to end society as we know it. The concept of the Metaverse is this. Throughout history, we have constantly been moving towards more and more engaging mediums. We've gone from text to photo to video. We've gone from reading books and papers to now spending most of our spare time watching TikToks on the internet. And the Metaverse is what comes next. An internet that you're not just looking at through a screen, but that you're actually inside of. Take anything you could think of doing right now. Shopping, chatting with friends, meditating to ASMR videos on YouTube. And now imagine that in the time it takes you to just snap your fingers, you could be doing that thing in a way that feels real, with other people who feel present in a setting that's whatever you want it to be. A living, shared, everlasting, virtual universe. That's Meta's vision of the metaverse, achieved through a combination of augmented reality and virtual reality, which they've said that they will subsidize the cost of in an effort to get as many people on this planet to be a part of the metaverse. And in case I wasn't clear, this is pretty damn cool, and there are some undeniable positives. Like, just to get the obvious out of the way, the metaverse will allow you to live out your fantasies. In one single evening, you could be slaying enemies in hand-to-hand combat, you could be playing a quiet game of chess on the streets of New York, and surfboarding across the tropics of the Bahamas. All with incredible realism, but at the same time the reassurance that you yourself are safe at home. And on a similar note, there is also a comfort to the idea that you'll also be able to express yourself however you want to. You know how now you have a profile picture for your social media accounts? The image that represents you to other people. Well, in the metaverse, you won't just have an image, you will have an avatar. A fully three-dimensional living depiction of you, but you in the way that you would want to be. Did you ever wish you were 3 inches taller? Now you can be. Did you ever wish you had a bigger forehead? Now you can have one. You can be any gender you want, you can be any race you want, you could be any creature you want. Yes, Milo, I choose you. And to be very clear, longer term, your avatar is not going to look like these cartoon people. I think they just use them to make it seem a little bit less creepy. The truth is though, Meta is also working on the tech to create completely lifelike avatars, fully rendered with every hair on their head and every pore on their skin. This is not a game, this will feel like real life. And what I'm saying is that this realism, combined with the sheer amount of choices you'll get, will allow you to feel like you're not being constrained by the body that you are physically born into. In real life, you could be someone with a severe disability in a wheelchair, but in the metaverse, forget walking, you could be able to fly. Each person will have their own home space, you create the aesthetic that you want others to see, and then you can invite people to just appear within it. Wait, what the? Teleportation will be the equivalent of just clicking a link in your browser now. Practically instant. And if you compare that to the concept of real teleportation, of literally deconstructing every atom in a person's body at one point in time and then recreating them somewhere else, I think one of those two options is more likely to be the future of transport. And it's not the real one. Besides, if we are moving towards the metaverse, and if all interactions are going to happen virtually anyways, we wouldn't even want to physically teleport. We'd want to be at home with our headsets. Well, the metaverse is going to make Googling it seem just as old-fashioned. You'll be able to learn about things by just touching them, or even hell, looking at them, and you'll be able to obtain that information in a more visual, interactive way than we've ever seen before. You'll be able to travel not just to any place, but also to any time. The Industrial Revolution, ancient Rome, the dinosaurs. Being able to actually experience living with the dinosaurs, can you imagine? A lot of us have grown up writing everything with pens. Nowadays, people are shifting to tapping things on keyboards. In the metaverse, we'll be using voices, gestures, and even making things happen by just thinking about them. I'm not joking, Meta is working now on electromyographic, or EMG, input devices, which can detect and intercept the impulses in your nerves, the signals from when your brain is telling, for example, what your fingers, what they should be doing, and translate those signals to the corresponding actions in a virtual space. Or in other words, you will be able to send a message to someone by just thinking about moving your fingers. You won't even need to physically move them. And this metaverse hardware, it's not as far off as you think. Fun fact, next year, Meta is coming out with a headset, currently being codenamed Project Cambria, which in one fell swoop will apparently solve two of the biggest current barriers to the metaverse. One, that it will be comfortable enough, and the display will be sufficiently close to the resolution of your eyes that you won't feel like you're wearing a headset. And two, it'll be able to track your facial expressions in real time. Which, if pulled off correctly, will mean you'll be able to have conversations with realistic body language in a virtual space. So, these are the obvious benefits from the metaverse. Experiences, expression, teleportation, knowledge, and productivity. But there's also a couple of potentially unexpected ones.
Yeah, let's talk about those shortly. So our world today is already phone zombies. We're on our Facebook, we're on our social media. We're trying to take that perfect selfie. We're not aware of that we're almost going to fall off the stage, the side of a mountain, or into some sort of abyss of oblivion. And it's like, folks, how far do we want to go down this rabbit hole? Zuckerberg is not stupid. He knows what makes him money. He knows what the world wants. He knows what the demands are. Metaverse is in its infancy. It is going to be growing exponentially in the next 10 years. And their goal is to make more and more money, more control. And we already have the phone zombies. Can you imagine having these devices? Are you as Christian parents going to allow your kids to be in an alternate reality? How far down the rabbit hole do we want to go on this, folks? And I ask the Christian audience this, online and in front of me. We're created in the image of God, I believe, but there's always something we don't like about us, and the enemy knows us better than we know ourselves. He knows our weaknesses. He knows what we don't like about ourselves. And don't we have a whole world that wants to change so much about themselves? This alternate form of reality, escapism as I call it, will allow for that to transpire. So let's say, I'm not happy with my gender today. Maybe I want to be different tomorrow. We don't see any of that going on in the world, right? Yeah, unfortunately we do. So now I can be my own gender, whatever I feel like. Maybe I don't want to be a gender. I don't want to be restricted to a male or female. Maybe I want to be, say, an animal. I want to be a hippopotamus. That's my goal. I'm going to be a hippo. Okay, well, I could with my avatar. I can be an animal. I can be a person. Also, I can decide, what if I'm too short and I want to be taller? What if I'm too fat and I want to be skinnier? What if I'm too skinny? I want to be larger. What if I want to be, let's be vain. We have women that are concerned about every wrinkle in their faces, and they have the magazine covers at the supermarket checkout lanes, unrealistic expectations for people when they age. They try to stay youthful. Men get caught up in this too. Look at the world of Botox. Well, now you can have that perfect figure. You can have that perfect face. Plus, you'll have wealth. You'll have success. Nike is putting in a lot of money to the shoes that you will buy with digital currency. You can have that fancy Gucci handbag or those designer name brands of clothes or designer this, designer that. You will have power. You will have control. You will have fame. You'll have attention. You'll be all those things that you aren't in this world. Because what do we have in our current world? Well, I kind of have that job that sucks right now, but it's getting the bills for me paid, right? I don't really like my job. I don't like my supervisor. Everybody else sucks up to him, but I just want to be left alone and do my job. I don't have anybody I can really relate to. My family, well, let's not even go there. That's a bunch of twisted roots. We all have family members we don't like to be a part of. We don't like them over for the holidays, but we deal with them. And then there's that neighborhood or those neighbors I don't like that aren't really fun to be with. I can't really relate to. I'd rather be left alone. Well, now, metaverse, put it on. All those things go away. I control my world. Can you see where this is going, folks, and how much money it's going to bring? Zuckerberg is counting on it. So right now, the virtual reality market has reached $1.1 billion last year. The mobile games industry could be worth $169.7 billion by the end of 2025. There are more than 2.7 billion gamers worldwide today. The global gaming market could be worth $200 billion by the end of 2023. At the end of 2021, which has passed, mobile gamers worldwide will have reached 2.9 billion. Sony's PlayStation has the highest console sales ever. Console gaming could generate $61 billion in revenue by 2022. The Chinese games market is set to reach $35 billion in 2021. The average gamer is 34 years old. In 2021, the global gamers market will generate $175.8 billion. There are more than 2.5 billion gamers in the world. The average female video game player is 36. The average male is 32, hence you get the 34 age is split between the two of them. 23% of video players in the US are over 50 years of age. So it's not just for the kids. Adults are getting home from their jobs. They're neglecting their wives and their children. We all know stories like that. And they're parked in front of their TV and they ain't moving. 60% of Americans play video games daily. Is this a part of our Christian audience? I think so. And 56% of gamers play multi-gamer games at least once a week, so you can connect and you can interact with other people online. Facebook, this is stunning. It's nearing a market capitalization of over, we're not in the billions, folks. We've surpassed it. We're now in $1 trillion. Can you imagine that? Fathom that thought? Facebook is nearing a market capitalization of $1 trillion. They know where this is going to take them. Man is now creating his own image because God's image no longer suffices. It's not necessary. We were created in the image of God, but we're going to change our avatar. We're going to change our self-identity. And when we start talking about transhumanism and the integration of machines with man, you're going to see that if you change just 1% of your DNA, you are no longer human. Is that what God wants for us? I don't think so. Let's move on. The goal is to create basically a Star Trek holodeck. We've all grown up with Star Trek. We've seen that little escape room they go into where they're in a whole different environment, a whole different world, because they're in a alternate reality. It's all fake, it's illusion, it's another form of reality, but we lose ourselves in it. This is what Zuckerberg is going to be bringing us, and it's going to affect all our families, our children, future generations. Nike is allowing specific sales of shoes that can only be purchased in the metaverse. Gucci has their own handbags as well. And what's interesting is there are people that when they do jobs around the house, they do jobs in the neighborhood, they need money from their parents, they don't ask for cash anymore. They want Bitcoins. They want money that they can buy online to get these enhancements, to get that Gucci bag, to get that Nike shoe, to have whatever is important and valuable to say, look at me, I now have it. People will actually lose themselves in the artificial reality. We've seen that with the gaming industry, with kids today, with the shootings and the increases in violence in the schools, where they just automatically are pulling on that trigger, first person or third person, doesn't matter. They're starting to lose a sense of empathy, of consequences. Where is this going? So instead of dealing with the everyday problems in life as we're supposed to, as we were born to, we can escape into what? A better job, a better family, a better you, in sense. So this is all possible through Zuckerberg within the next 5 to 10 years. It's already taken off the ground. So, but think about it, folks. Lack of personal interactions will have a profound effect on our families, our culture, our children, who already they're facing problems with the lockdowns at home and with all the issues of remote home learning already that they've faced. It's hurting them. They're falling behind backwards. Now, empathy, that's important that our children have that. We learn that for others while growing up, and we will be challenged as there will be no consequences for the actions in the metaverse. There will be no consequences. There'll be a restart, a redo. People will become more cruel, less caring, less aware. I don't know about you, but I've already noticed that in the last few years. It's kind of like the love of many will wax cold. I think the Bible talks about that. So I'm already seeing that. This will make it exponentially worse. And children will learn to hate the real world that God created and thrive for another world with no restrictions, no consequences. So think about it. You could be a small child confined in a wheelchair, and then you escape into another world where you're not confined. You have no limitations. You have no handicaps. You have no disabilities. You have no restraints that keep you from moving forward with your body. And then when that game ends, or you're done for the day, when that day ends for you, what do you go back to? Yourself. And maybe you don't like yourself. And do we see a rise with suicides, with depression in our world? You think this is going to add to it? You bet it will, exponentially. Also, avatars have already been attacked and groped in these illusionary worlds. Crime will occur within that. But it's okay, there's no consequences. You restart or resurrection, and you have a new avatar. So remember, Satan told the lie that you will live forever. And he's taken us from our families. He's taken us from the book, the Lord's book. He's taken us from God, from fellowship, from time with him, getting us into these illusionary, false forms of reality that's going to take us absolutely nowhere and away from God. And that's part of Satan's plan. And he's successful. He knows our weaknesses. So later on, a merger with digitalized memories for uploading and transference of consciousness, now we're going to get into transhumanism, into a new reality will be offered. Okay? How much screen time do you allow your children in pursuit of entertainment? As a parent, do you cap it? Do you give them unlimited resources? Do they watch the boob tube all day long and then just throw the metaverse on them and you don't have to worry about them anymore? Is that your goal as a parent? So we ought to have signs like this pretty much everywhere we go in society. Be aware of the phone zombies. You've seen them and I've seen them. And I'm at the intersection and I kind of like cringe because there's cars not paying attention. We have distracted drivers. We have distracted pedestrians. And guess what happens when car and pedestrian meet? It's not a happy ending, and it happens all too often. So here's a couple that's on a date. I don't know, what I'm thinking of when I see that picture is right there, social distancing. Now, I know this is going to probably date me a little bit, but I'll throw myself out there. When my wife and I were dating, we actually did something where we looked at each other. I know it sounds crazy, but we actually made eye contact with one another, and we maintained that eye contact, and we actually talked, and we maintained that eye contact, and we had a conversation. And this wouldn't be funny if it wasn't true. We just went to a restaurant probably about 3 weeks ago, and I had my lovely prime rib dinner, eat cow, as Pastor Billy says. And I was telling her, and you probably observed this too, where there was a father with a daughter and a son. I don't know if his wife had passed away, was at work or separated, but it was the three of them at that table. And what I thought was sad, and it's all too common in today's world, is nobody, the entire time they were at that table, spoke to each other. Dad was distracted because in the restaurant there's little TVs in the corner of the walls, and the son and daughter did not talk to each other. They had their meal. Daughter left, went to go to the bathroom, came back. They asked for the check, and they left. Not one word was spoken. What happened to our world? We don't want to talk anymore. We just text. So we talked about selfies earlier as I was on the edge of the stage here. But you got to capture for Facebook and Twitter and Roku and all those other accounts. Got to get that last shot in. And no matter what the peril is you put yourself through, you got to get that out there. Look at our workforce today in corporate America. Even if you're allowed a restroom break, we want performance. We want numbers. We want production met. We have demands met. And there's competition. If you don't keep up with the crowd, you're gone. And I've seen that on cruise ships where people have their laptops and they're typing away working. We're slaves to our world, to our social media. And instead of being a part of the image and experiencing it and being a part of it, we capture somebody else, capturing somebody else, capturing somebody else. No one's having fun, no one's engaged, no one's in the environment, but we just have our pictures and upload it, and that's our free time, our vacation time. It's not meant to be that way. And all too often, we see this in the restaurants. You see it all the time, folks. We're distracted by our digital media. It's nonstop. It's in our face. We don't have conversations with people. We don't even have to talk on the phone because if we're upset or we're angry or we're happy, we just send them an emoji. That way they know how we're feeling. So let's look at, pay attention to this clip here. Let's look at what the world of social media has done for our society.
We convince ourselves technology is helping. The reality is, people don't seem enough for us these days. We condense books into articles, into lists, into GIFs, because who has time to read an actual sentence anymore? We scroll and click and double tap our lives away, wondering where the day goes. We're more anxious than any generation before us, yet we keep downloading another app hoping that it can fix us. We look to the latest trends, check the reviews on Yelp, investigate the hashtags, yet in a world with so much information, we're somehow still missing the wisdom of life. We crave real connection, but we'd rather text about the hard conversations. We desire relationships, but settle for following each other on Twitter. We stare at the pretty pictures on Instagram instead of the person standing right in front of us. We prefer filtered images to reality. We listen to a new podcast over a person's day. We check social media more than we check in with our friends. In our constant need for new information, new insights, new everything, we lose the chance to make old memories. We like being busy. We wear it like a badge of honor. We can't focus because we're being pulled in 50 different directions. We can't commit because there always seems to be another option, a better alternative. We have trust issues with the people we've known for years, yet we trust someone's review that we just saw on Amazon. We want to hold hands while still holding onto our phones. We scroll through Twitter while we have lunch with our friends. We think we can keep one foot out the door while still falling for the person sitting in front of us. We always need the latest, the newest, the most up-to-date, and then wonder why relationships don't last. We walk around stores on FaceTime and text during work because life without multitasking feels inefficient. We fill our schedule, we fill our days, we fill our phones thinking that will cure the emptiness that we feel inside us. We binge another series of that latest Netflix show because someone else's story drowns out the experience of our own. We complain that nothing feels real anymore, but we don't give anything time to become real. We complain nothing has depth, but we don't allow things space to deepen. We're so quick to fill the silence or write someone off completely. We complain nothing feels authentic today as we select a new filter on our selfies. We recharge our devices, but not ourselves. When we're out of time, we just add more to our schedules. We don't know who we want to become because we're too distracted by who everyone else is becoming. How many times has anyone ever said to you, I want your time? Whenever you hear that, know this truth. What people really want is your energy. Imagine if you gave someone an hour of your time, but the whole time you were completely distracted on your phone, versus if you gave someone 10 minutes of your complete energy. I'm sure that any of us would select option 2 because what we're really searching for is energy. What we're really searching for is attention. What we're really looking for is presence. What we're really after is affection. So what we really need to do is give people our energy, not just our time. Take a moment, take time to reflect, take a step back. Who are the people that make you forget to look at your phone? Spend time with them. Starve your distractions, feed your focus. You can't do the big things if you're always distracted by the small ones.
Isn't that something? Isn't it so true, so realistic, so our world today? Are we better off with our technology? I would have to say no. We have our own Tower of Babel, and it's piled up with laptops and computers and phones and this and that electronic and that electronic. We're socially distanced. We don't communicate. We're socially inadequate. We're lazy as a society. We don't interact. We don't want to meet people. We don't want to talk to people. We don't want to learn a new name. And we have several questions you have to ask yourself. And I'm going to throw these questions on here. See how many yes answers you have just within yourself as you keep track. Now, realize because of our technology can be good or bad. It depends how it's used. But I believe in these end days, the devil is using it for evil and for corruption. Right now, we have an estimated 1 million people worldwide that are dying by suicide. Globally, suicide ranks among the 3 leading causes of death among those aged. That's a young age span, 15 to 44 years. Nearly 40% of American adults aged 20 and over are obese. That's because we have all our technology in front of us. 71.6% of adults aged 20 and over are overweight, including obesity. The United States is the most obese, 36.2%. According to the World Health Organization, we hear a lot about them, more than 1.9 billion adults worldwide were overweight, including 650 million who were obese. So while social media has been widely linked to anxiety and depression in teenagers, new evidence suggests that platforms such as TikTok, Instagram can leave middle-aged adults feeling sad as well. So let's ask ourselves some questions here. When's the last time you received a handwritten letter? I hear some laughs. When did you last call someone to just talk? Not text, I know it's the same number of letters, talk. Do you put away your media devices at the dinner table? Now, in my household, when there's dinner on the table, there is no devices allowed on the table. And if the kids don't like that, they find a new place to live. So parents, do you allow your kids to tune you out? Are they allowed to have those devices at the dinner table? Does anyone make time for you? Do you feel totally alone, even when in a crowd, a church, or around all of your media devices? Would you rather hear from another person's voice over the phone, or are you okay with texting because you're just used to it? That's what we do for the last few years. Did anyone in the last 2 days, just 2 days, make you laugh or feel special, wanted, or perhaps more important, needed? Is social distancing the new normal for you? Do you accept it like the frogs in the pot and the water gets warmer and warmer? Do you run errands, walk, run, drive your car with music in your earbuds? Well, if you do, not you have to raise your hand here and fess yourself up. What you're projecting is to other people, don't talk to me, don't bother me. I don't want to be hearing anything about you. I don't care about you. I'm in it for myself. That's what you're projecting to somebody else. Have you learned a new name of someone you met at work, perhaps? What about in your neighborhood? What about your schools? How about in this church? Have you met a new name, a new person? And more questions. Can you maintain eye contact without looking at the ground? I'm sorry. I gotta maintain eye contact, that's right. Look at somebody, pay attention to them. Can you shake a hand firmly? Can you listen to the other person finish a sentence? And that seems kind of redundant, folks, but it happens all the time where people don't really care what your thoughts are. They don't care what you have to offer them. They just want to say what they want to say, and they want to talk about their favorite topic, which you know what that is, themselves. So are you really conversing to engage in monologue, which is talking about yourself, which is a form of narcissism? It's the biggest rule of Satanism. Pastor Billy's teaching about that this past few weeks. Doest as thou wilt, right? It's all about yourself. Or are you having conversation, dialogue to engage with others, to learn from them, to teach them, to help them? So are you basically happiest when you're alone at your PlayStation, when you're in front of the TV, or just listening to some of your favorite music artists? And when you're done at work, do you linger to speak to others? Maybe you want to talk to somebody, meet somebody, help somebody, or do you just take off? At the end of a school day, do you run to the bus stop or to your car? And after church is over, getting warm in here. After church is over, do you run to the parking lot? Oh, you don't think I've seen that? Oh yeah, it goes on. Do your neighbors know anything about you, your name or your interests? Or do we not? What does Jesus tell us about neighbors? Yeah, we're supposed to know our neighbors. Do you prefer the company of animals over people? Because people are just so evil and rotten, and I can't relate to them, and they don't understand me, and therefore this, and politically, and the vaccine, and their position on the government, and the world, and religion, and we don't agree on even the rapture, so I'll just spend all my time with my pets. They're going to replace people in my life. That's right. And is reading the Bible no longer relevant because we have all these digital distractions? Now, we talked about metaverse in the beginning, about how they're selling it to us. Let's look at some of the pitfalls and some of the problems associated with it. You won't see Zuckerberg promoting this, but this is what's going on with it. Watch this.
But it's also pretty scary. There's 4 key things that I think we need to be very mindful of. Like data. Let's be honest, Facebook has had a pretty rocky relationship with how it's handled user data in the past. And remember, that's from an era where we were still somewhat separate from our digital selves. But in the case where we become our digital selves, where our profiles are not just a few holiday photos that we choose to share, but literally everything we do in this metaverse, we're going to have to put a whole new level of trust into a company that doesn't exactly reveal how they're using this information. We're talking about data collection on the level of measuring your brain activity. You wouldn't even give your family that kind of access, but this is a future where you could be giving it to Meta. But something potentially even scarier than the data problem is that we are talking about how companies will be able to create virtual experiences that feel indistinguishable from real ones, right? I mean, on one hand, that is a miracle, but isn't it also a little bit alarming? We are already being shown predominantly only the content we agree with and the content that we want to see. But if you take that concept into the realm of the metaverse, we could completely lose touch with what's actually real. The power to curate not just your newsfeed, but your entire world now means that if you hate seeing homeless people, well, your metaverse can pretend that they don't exist. If you didn't think COVID was real, in your version of the metaverse, it wouldn't be. If you only loved one tech brand and hated the rest, in your metaverse, that's all you'd need to see. You won't even really know if what someone is saying to you is actually what the person behind that avatar is saying, or if it's just what Meta wants you to hear because it will keep you on the platform for the longest. Or let's say one of your friends' accounts got hacked. You could be sitting in the same room as a cyber criminal and you wouldn't even know. We'd effectively be surrendering control of our entire sense of reality to other parties, whose incentives are nothing to do with our best interests, just making sure that, I guess, you see as many adverts as possible. But there's more. You might not know this, but one of the biggest challenges of running a social media platform is actually in the moderation of it. Facebook already has entire warehouses filled with people who are just scanning for the absolute worst things people are posting. Hate speech, terrorism, exploitation, and just trying to prevent as much of it as possible from spreading. But it's one thing to try and police written text, where you can very easily scan for potentially harmful keywords. If Meta want to carry on this moderation in something as complex and as open as the metaverse, then they're going to need to do it in a way that's incredibly invasive. They're going to have to be watching exactly what tattoos people's avatars have, what the writing on their clothing is saying, every single item you design or purchase for your home space. Every action will have to be monitored if they don't want it to turn into chaos. Okay, these are all concerns, but do you want to know what my most fundamental fear is about the metaverse? It's that we talk about all the cool things it will enable for our avatar, that they'll be able to do what they want, look how they want, experience anything, but it all leaves a big question about what happens to us? At the end of the day, right, as incredible as the technology is, we're still people. We still need to eat healthy, we need to drink lots of water, we need to work out, meet a partner, have a family, and I'm not convinced that the metaverse is going to help us continue to do that. I think the metaverse is effectively the next generation of social media, with all the positives and the negatives of those platforms taken to the absolute extreme. You'll experience the highs of immersive shared experiences like never before, but also harassment in a way that feels far closer and more uncomfortable, misinformation that's more convincing, and activities that are more addictive. It's being pitched as something that will sit alongside our real lives, to complement them. But I can't see a world where it wouldn't become our lives. In a world where something of this power exists, you won't be able to just pop off your headset and carry on with your day as normal. The metaverse will feel no more optional than the internet does now. You'll need it for work to get the required productivity, you'll need it for social opportunities because that's where all your friends are, you'll need it because relative to your life in the metaverse, your real life will kind of suck. Can you imagine every night taking off your headset and going from this handsome prince who's just won the approval of your entire clan on an intergalactic voyage to then seeing your actual self in the mirror and remembering that you're not that person, that you don't have the perfect face and body, and that you can never do the things that your avatar can do. The incentive won't be to start looking after our real selves because we can never get there. It'll be to actually put our headsets back on and spend even more time in the metaverse. I recently got some graphic design work done for my channel, and the guy I hired asked for payments not in dollars, but Fortnite V-Bucks, because to that person, buying in-game items was more valuable than buying real-life items. The metaverse is not just a Facebook thing. It's the universe that all of these big tech companies together are slowly but surely pouring tens of billion dollars into creating together. Facebook is just the first one to make its part in it official. But let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea how many companies hold this data? More importantly, how to actually get it back. A lot of people assume that at the point where they delete an app from their phone or deactivate one of their social media accounts, that their data just disappears. But the truth is, unless you specifically write to a company and exercise your right to be forgotten, all your sensitive personal data, address, phone number, everything will just sit on a growing number of servers from every single thing you've ever signed up to. And, well, it goes without saying, the more servers, the higher the risk of a leak. And this is what Mine is trying to counter. They're the sponsors of this video, and their app gives you a visual summary of exactly which companies know what about you, and then how to get it back. So if I sign up with my email address on saymine.com, I can see that, oh dear, 751 companies have my data. But it's also pretty scary. There's 4 key things that I think we need to be very mindful of. Like data. Let's be honest, Facebook has had a pretty rocky relationship with how it's handled user data in the past. And remember, that's from an era where we were still somewhat separate from our digital selves. But in the case where we become our digital selves, where our profiles are not just a few holiday photos that we choose to share, but literally everything we do in this metaverse, we're going to have to put a whole new level of trust into a company that doesn't exactly reveal how they're using this information. We're talking about data collection on the level of measuring your brain activity. You wouldn't even give your family that kind of access, but this is a future where you could be giving it to Meta. But something potentially even scarier than the data problem is that we are talking about how companies will be able to create virtual experiences that feel indistinguishable from real ones, right? I mean, on one hand, that is a miracle, but isn't it also a little bit alarming? We are already being shown predominantly only the content we agree with and the content that we want to see.
Did it repeat itself again? Yes. Okay, so we're going to stop it here and move on. There's a hiccup there. But so think about it, folks. What does God want from us? Does he want a society that he created to just have these devices in front of their faces, their own reality, their own world they live in, because what he gave us is not enough? That we have to create our own reality, create our own world? How far down that rabbit hole do we want to go to? Well, apparently we're not doing well with dealing with the world, that we have to have a form of escapism, either with our toys, our digital media. What else do we use as a form of escapism? This has been going on for how many years? The drug scene. I can tell you stories, over countless stories, where I've seen lives snuffed and ruined by the influence of drugs. We've seen it tear apart the families. Why do we do this? This is our own metaverse. It's our own temporary getaway, our own dealing with reality and getting outside of it temporarily. And what's the price afterwards when we come back? So with Zuckerberg selling us this package of things that we want to engage in and give our money to and spend our time, what are we going to be feeling like when we turn that dang machine off? So if we go back to the Bible, in Psalm 139, verses 13 through 14, it says, "For you were created, my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Praised you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made." He knows us. God created man in his image, Genesis 1:27. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, which today we don't recognize. We have to add to it. We have to distort it. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 19 through 20. Do you know that your bodies are temple to the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies, not these devices on our faces, ignoring God, taking time away from him. And remember, Proverbs 21 through 25, the sluggard's craving will be the death of him because his hands refuse to work. We have a government that's encouraging us not to work, paying us more money to stay home, not to work. We're becoming lazy. We're becoming sluggards. So we all know this is a picture of the statue in Daniel that Nebuchadnezzar had actually dreamt about and wanted explained to him what it represented. We have the head of gold, which was Babylon, that kingdom. The chest and arms of silver was Medo-Persia. The belly and thigh was brass, that was Greece. And the legs of iron, with the feet of iron and clay, as we have here in this photo, is Rome. Now, there's different interpretations through scholars who study the Bible. The Bible doesn't give us explicit information on what that combination of metal and clay is. I used to think maybe it could be artificial intelligence, transhumanism, the flesh and machine not working together. It's just a theory. Can't say, thus saith the Lord. One of the guest speakers that I mentioned in the beginning of this topic is going to be coming here, and his view is that actually it has to do with globalism versus nationalism. They will not mix. They will fall apart. And we know the rock that comes and smites the statue is Jesus Christ himself. So let's take a look, as we're going to wrap this up, moving into the indoctrination of AI and transhumanism.
good, that's on. Roger. BCS arm switch is on. Okay, Victor. Landing rocket arm switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Chevy breakers in. We have separation. Roger. Inboard and outboard are on. We're coming forward with the side stick. That's good. Roger. I've got a blowout. Vapor 3. Get your pitch to 0. Pitch is out. I can't hold altitude. Correction. Alpha 1 is on. Track flight is emergency. Flight call. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
So how many remember watching that growing up in the 70s, right? We have the technology, right? We're going to be going into transhumanism. We have the technology, but what we don't have right now is the time. We have to end this tonight, and we're going to pick up next time and talk about the merger of man and machine, and what does God think about it? Why are we doing it? We're going to talk about human 2.0 and the genetic manipulation that's occurring in our world today. And these are things that affect Christians, and Christians have to decide how much do I allow this to be a part of my life? And is it taking me away from the time with the Lord, with reading the Bible, with fellowship with other Christians? How much of it do I want to consume my life? We have to find a balance, folks, or maybe just not have it in your life at all. Okay? We're going to go ahead and close in prayer. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to teach and mentor and discuss things that affect our society, that affect Christians, that affect the world in general, the secular world as well. We know there's definitely demonic deception, demonic involvement with this. It wants to take us away from your word. It wants to take us away from our time with you, with studying the Bible.